let's start with the fifth chapter, jewelry. All of us enjoy decorating our bodies. In ancient times, it was believed that besides enhancing its beauty, decorating the body gave it additional strength and power. One of the oldest forms used in jewelry was that of a spear, representing the seed, the bija. Later, a range of beads were made from clay, glass, metal, and precious stones. This symbolized fertility, growth, and the origin of life. Many jewelry forms made in metal reproduce forms of flowers and fruits. Champakali is a necklace made of jasmine bud motifs and is worn throughout India. Karnaful Jhumka is a combination of the form of an open lotus at the earlobe and a suspended half open bird. Mangai Mala is a rich necklace from Tamil Nadu with a style mango forms studded with rubies. Precious metal such as gold and silver were for the rich, while the less affluent used even brass and white metal. Gold was associated with the sun and silver chandi with the chandrama, the moon. In the past, when there was discrimination on the basis of caste, only upper caste were allowed to wear gold. This is now changing, and those who can afford it wear gold and precious jewels. Stridhan. From Vedic time onwards, jewelry was counted as a woman's wealth and comprised as a part of her inheritance from her father as well as a gift from her husband. Meaning and significance of jewelry. In some tribal societies, each ornament was a symbol of the rank and the status of the wearer, and it was also believed to have certain magical powers. Thus, the purpose of ornamentation was not only to satisfy an instinctive desire to decorate the body, it was also invested with symbolic significance. This aspect is clearly expressed in the form of amulets, which carry inscribed prayers to protect the wearer from evil influences. All communities and faith use this form of jewelry as protection against harm or to activate certain positive qualities. It was with the establishment of a settled agrarian society that jewelry became a form of saving and a symbol of status. A variety of design in folk jewelry evolved over the years, and the important positive of the jeweler in village society also points to the fact that jewelry was considered as the only form of investment which could be encashed during an emergency. It was mandatory for every married woman to wear jewelry. Necklace, earrings, head ornaments, and bangles were essential for every married woman. It was only widows who were deprived of jewelry. So, the next point is jewelry for every part of the body. Each region in India has a particular style of jewelry that is quite distinct. Differences occur even as one goes from one village to another. Despite the variety of jewelry patterns in different parts of the country, the design in each region are also at times strikingly similar. First, head and forehead. Women wear the bow resting upon the parting of the hair in Rajasthan and parts of Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh, whereas the tikka, a rounded pendant at the end of a long chain which falls on the forehead, is used throughout India. The Srinagar patti, which frames the face and often connects with the tikka on the top of the earring, are also used widely. In earlier times, men wore the kalgi, a palm jewel, on top of the turban. Nose. Ornament worn all over India has variation from the simple lavang clove to fully the elaborately worked stud or nut, the nose ring, worn in the right nostril, and the bully, the nose ring worn in the center over the lips. Next is neck. One of the ornaments is the gulband, which is made up of earlier beads or rectangular pieces of metal strung together with the help of threads. A ribbon is attached at the back and protects the neck of the wearer. Then there is a longer kanthi or the bajaithi. Below this is worn either a silver chain or a necklace of beads. Then the men would wear a charm or a taviz at the neck and a kantha, a long necklace. Fingers. For the hands there are number of rings. On festive occasions women wear the hathful or ratan chok to decorate the back of the hands. Wrists. For the wrist there is a kada, a the paunchi, the gajra, which quite often extends 6 inches above the wrist. Arms. The bazu, the joshan and the bank are worn above the elbow. Men wore a heavy kada or a bangle. Hips. A series of silver chains formed into a belt are worn at the hips and are generally known as kandora or kandhani, while the men would wear a silver or gold belt. Ankles. Solid heavy metal anklets combined with the delicately worked paisabs ending in twinkling silver hollow bells. While men would wear a heavy silver anklet, only royalty wore gold on their feet. Toes. The bichua, the scorpion ring for toe, is put on by women at the time of their marriage. So the next point is jewelry through the ages. 3000 to 1500 before Christ. Harappan period. India has unbroken tradition of over 5000 years of jewelry making. The excavation at the Harappan site have uncovered beads and shell bangles. The shell bangles are exactly similar to the one worn by married women in Ladakh. Gold sheets shaped into headbands were also found. 300 BCE to 300 CE. The richest collection of jewelry was discovered in Takshila, an important Buddhist center of learning. It was on the trade route as well as the road for the migration of people entering India. Here, the jewelry exhibits Greek influence and the introduction of new technologies such as filigree and granulation. It is interesting to observe, however, there are marked similarities between our present day jewelry designs and the jewelry of the Sumerian and the early Greeks. A necklace excavated at Ur, which is made up of a finely designed pendants of lion heads with granulated work and supposed to have belonged to the Queen Bathsheba, has a remarkable likeness to the Garuda necklace prepared in Kerala. Early Greek jewelry has a close similarity with some of the traditional jewelry of Kutch and Saurashtra. The pattern of some Egyptian jewelry, especially armlets and snakeheads, are found in India as well. 400 CE. There is a close similarity in the jewelry design of today with those of early times. This we know from descriptions in literature and in the depiction of jewelry in sculptures and paintings. The kanti, a necklace worn close to the neck, and the falakara, a long necklace comprising a number of tablets strung with a series of beads. It is seen in the early Gupta period and is found in use even today. In most part of the North India. The Chaudamani, shaped like a full-blown lotus with many petals, was worn at the parting of the hair and is similar to the present-day boar of Rajasthan. In the Ramayana, there is a mention of Sita wearing a Nishka necklace. Nishka, a gold coin, is also referred to the Jataka stories. The tradition of wearing of coin necklace continues. 900 CE. The use of nose ornament was introduced into India quite late, as the early sculptures and murals do not show nose ornaments. It appears to have been introduced by the Arabs after the 10th century, and over the years it became common all over India and became associated with the marriages. Next point is regional varieties of jewelries. Despite the fact that styles in jewelry have on the whole tended to develop region-wise, we find that the certain distinctive forms have been developed by the specific sections, groups and areas. The jewelry of Kashmir is quite distinct. The most important are the ear ornaments known as Kanballe, worn by Muslim women on the both sides of the head. They comprise a number of rings which are attached to the hair on the crab. Spiti and Kashmir. In Punjab, women wear a special ornament, chonk. It is cone shaped and is worn at the top of the head with two smaller cones, known as full, worn at the sides. Through all the hilly jewelry of Kullu and Kinnor districts is made in Hoshiarpur, Hoshiarpur in Himachal Pradesh. It has its own particular style. The people patra, made out of bunches of a heart-shaped silver leaves fastened to an enameled piece of silver, is worn in these areas by women on the both sides of their caps. It frames their faces with the light shimmering in cascade of silver. The necklaces are formed out of large metal plates engraved with the traditional design of the region and filled with the green and yellow enamel. The most common design is of Devi riding her lion. The nose ornaments of Kullu are also highly specialized. The large sized nut and bowlak designs of a single leaf are not to be seen in other parts of the India. On festive occasions, they wear a large nut, often larger than the face of the wearer. The belts worn in Andhra Pradesh have intricate clasps of the double head of a Rakshas or Kirti Mukha. Another pattern of a core Another pattern of a kara which is common in Andhra Pradesh is that of serpent's head, which appears to be holding the earth in their mouth. The necklace often derives their design from the shape of grains. In Assam, the tribes patronize silver jewelry while the plain gold jewelry is preferred. The pattern of gold jewelry are extremely delicate. The jewels, through few, are finely finished. The earring, known as Thuriya, has the form of lotus with a heavy stem. The shape reminds one of the traditional Kamal earring mentioned in the ancient literature. Thuriya is usually made of gold and studded with rubies in the front portion as well as in the back. West Bengal. filigree work on the gold and silver jewelry is extremely delicate. The finest pieces of jewelry are the hair ornaments like tarakanta and the pankanta, hairpins designed like a star and a betel leaf. The folk jewelry of Orissa in the silver and gold is rich in pattern, forms and design. The most popular technique is filigree. The traditional filigree work with the ropes in character and distinct form what is being pronounced commercially today in Kathak. Well, very few very few head ornaments are worn in Orissa. The accent is on arms and jewels, necklace and nose rings and ankles. With the finest design found on nose ornaments, one design known as Morpankhi is crafted like a peacock with often feathers, made with the process of granulation, filigree and casting. In Sambalpur, brass jewelry is common. Bangles in different pattern are polished daily and appear to be made of gold. Kerala has very rich variety of gold designs. The use of precious stones is not so common here. Variety is seen mostly in necklace. The Gurta necklace produced here bears testimony to the fine workmanship of the craftsmen of the area. Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, silver filigree armlets worn by Vellars of Coimbatore district have excellent workmanship in granular work. Chettinad jewelry made of uncut rubies is one of the finest. The Adigai necklace is made of string of uncut rubies set in gold. A central motif of a parkam imitates the lotus. The Mangai Malai is a necklace of mango-shaped pieces studded with uncut rubies and diamonds. The plate cover often has the top of the head of Naga and or a snake. The jewelry of the Todas and the Kotas of the Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu are very distinctive. Meenakari or the enamel work, one of the most sophisticated forms of jewelry development in North India is Meenakari. Jaipur is the main center, but some craftsmen practice this art in Delhi, Lucknow, and Varanasi as well. Meenakari is combined with the kundan to produce delicate and rich effect. The Meenakari of enameled patterns are so fine and intricate that they need to be examined with the magnifying glass. This tradition continues even today. A step-by-step description of how the technique of Meenakari or Kundan are combined to make exquisite jewelry is given below. First step. The shape of the jewelry is first created. Second step. The jeweler cuts out the section where precious stones need to be inlaid. Third. It is then handed over the Meenakar who fills the section with lac, fixes it on a stick of lac, and outlines the delicate designs of flower, foliage, and birds. After making the outline, fourth step, after making the outline, the entire area is engraved for filling the enamel color. Fifth step, to contain each color, different compartments are created. With the enclosed tiny compartments, lines are engraved to hold each color and also to reflect light since many of the colors are transparent. Sixth step, after these colors are filled in, fired in a simple clay oven at maximum temperature. Seventh step, colors which require a lesser degree of heat are then filled in their respective compartments in the design and fired again until the whole piece is worked with the enamel on both sides. Eighth step, Then the piece is given to the kundan worker, who hits it on warm ashes and fixes the stone in the empty spaces, which had earlier been cut to the shape. Ninth step. A fine good filling shape to the size of the opening and intended to hold the gem in place is then heated and fused to the base of the piece. And tenth and the last step. The finished piece is then polished with a soft leather cloth, till it glows. The beauty of Minakari ornament lies in the combination of elaborate patterns in enamel with the luster of the precious stones. The Age of Tolerance. Following is a poem, An Amethyst, by a school student, which, despite the hardships in the life of a gem cutter, I am I am an important amethyst from Africa. I can see the difficulties of my shaper. His age is 39 years, and he had been working from the age of 8. The machine is his own and cost him 250 rupees. It looked to me as if he's being killed by degrees, shaping an amethyst on a wheel with his BA degree packed with a seal. Sat Shahadir Ahmad, the stone cutter. He was oppressed, but no cry for help would be uttered. Late to bed and early to rise, he wakes at 5 and sleeps at 10 o'clock in the night, concentrating to shape me the right size. Due to this process, he weakens his eyesight. This was the work his father Sammo Khan had to do, and his grandfather Illai Achan did the same work. His children go to school, he wants them to read and write, and not like him be in a plight. The labor is 1 rupee per carat, he gets 1000 to 2000 rupees in a month. For all his hard work, no part-time job he can do. The machine might be his, but the Seth owns the factory. The uncut amethyst, like me, are imported. After being worked at they are exported. It's not because of the foreign workers are slow, it's because the cost of our cut amethyst are low. Because the workers' pay sale is low, how hard he works, how little he gets, how hard he struggles, but alas, he fails. This is my tale, this is my story. You for yourself can now understand a worker's sadness and fury. Bangle and bangle makers. In Firozabad, it is familiar sight to see people on bicycles wheeling hand carts or cycle rickshaws while piled with brightly colored bangles. They are either being taken to the people's home for completion or the back to the factory for refiring. With homes are also known as Judai Addas. The bangles go through the stage of Jalai, Judai and Kattai. The bangles come in large bunches of 312 bangles of 12 bangles are reserved for breakage. The first stage of Jalai, this work is done by women and children in the family. 4 to 5 members sit in their room house, which serves as their living, sleeping and working area. The roof and the all of this room are absolutely black with thick soot. The soot comes from the kerosene lamps that are used in their work. In front of each person there are 10 to 12 small kerosene oil wick lamps placed in the semicircle. Each bangle is then held by both ends and the middle is heated over the flame. The heated bangle is then placed on the ground and gently pressed to align the two ends. Care has been has to be taken to ensure that there are no burns either from the flame or the heated bangle. These aligned bangles are now taken over by men or older boys for the next stage, which is that the joining of bangles or the judai. In the process of the two ends, of the bangles are heated with a kerosene and acetylene flame. The ends are pressed together and the flame melts the glass through, join the bangles and make eight complete circle. In both stages, Jalai and Judai, the workers suffer the risk of being burned besides straining their eyes. Cramps, pain in the joints, as well as severe backaches are some of the other problems faced by these workers. The joint bangles are now ready for katai. The carving is done on a fast revolving wheel on which designs are etched into the glass. During the process, it is very common for a worker to get cut on the wheel or get flying glass particles into his eyes. It is accompanied by itches and pains, including strain of the back. Gold coating is the next step that bangles go through. Here, a solution of pure gold and chemical is poured into the design etched on the bangles, giving them a elaborate look. During the stage of the worker handle all the raw chemicals without wearing any protective gloves or aprons. As the gold solution is very expensive, worker have to be very careful in handling it so as to minimize the wastage. The bangles are now sent back to the factory for repairing, which gives them a sheen. These are put individually on a tin tray and placed in a furnace. Then they have to pull out, check and recheck it if it process is complete. The worker run a risk of exposure to excessive heat, burns and heat contact. Finally, the bangles are sorted and packed in boxes.